Hello and bonjour, this is Sarah Bukhari and you're watching Power Dilemma here at TAG TV. International Pink Day, April 11th, 2018 marks the International Day of Pink. It is a day where communities across the country and across the world can unite in celebrating diversity and raising awareness to stop homophobia, transphobia, transmisogyny and all forms of bullying. The International Day of Pink was started in Nova Scotia when two straight high school students saw a gay student wearing a pink shirt being bullied. The two students intervened but wanted to do more to prevent homophobic and transphobic bullying. They decided to purchase pink shirts and a few days later got everyone at school to arrive wearing pink, standing in solidarity. The result was that an entire school took a stand and began working together to prevent homophobic and transphobic bullying. To elaborate more on the significance of this day, we have with us Mr. Eric Lorenzen, who is the Vice President Communications with LGBT Tory. Hello, Eric.
Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Good to have you today.
Thank you.
Eric, why do we see a need to commemorate this day in Canada?
Well, I think it provides a focus for awareness of the bullying of LGBT students in our schools, and it is still a serious problem, even though we've made lots of progress in LGBT acceptance in society. Bullying of LGBT students is still a real problem in schools here in Ontario and all over the world. I was a teacher for 30 years. I retired recently, and I saw it firsthand. LGBT students in schools are more likely to be bullied. They're more likely to commit suicide. LGBT youth have higher rates of homelessness, substance abuse. All the markers of social distress are higher in LGBT students than in the general population. So there really is a need to draw attention to the problem.
Okay, so you mentioned that there is huge social distress among LGBT communities, and suicide rates, homelessness, and substance abuse is at a higher rate in these communities. So what is our province doing about it, and at a larger, what is Canada doing about it to curtail these problems?
Well, there's lots going on in the schools, and I think that's where it starts. Changing attitudes of young people is crucial, because when those attitudes are learned in schools and they carry on into adulthood, I think for years school administrators and authority figures and the police and so forth sort of turned a blind eye to homophobic bullying. But now the message is loud and clear that it's not acceptable, and I think initiatives like this send a clear message to people that this is not acceptable. So the attitudes that are learned in young students are carried on into adulthood. Furthermore, from the sort of legislative perspective, in recent years, the federal government and most of the provincial governments have added sexual orientation and sexual identity to their human rights codes. So there's legal recourse now to bullying of LGBT students, because it's now considered a human rights violation. So there's not only a program to change attitudes, but there's also legal recourse when it happens now. So the authorities are taking a much stricter approach to this.
So the question arises, does our young LGBTQ communities, like students in schools, do they feel safe in these spaces?
I think there's been a lot of improvement in the course of my career as a teacher. I noticed huge strides in that regard. So, but I think it depends on the school. Some schools have a very proactive approach and are very welcoming to LGBT students and send the message that they're safe and they're protected, and the staff is very involved. Other schools, not so much. So I think it depends on the school. Although things are improving a lot, and in my 30-year career as a teacher, I noticed it. It was very, very dramatic change.
So I would like to congratulate you on your hard work. Eric, one last question. Do you think Canada has achieved its goal as far as the rights of the LGBTQ community is concerned?
I think largely yes. We have the legislative framework in place and the rights framework in place in this country. Same-sex marriage has been legalized. Human rights codes protect the LGBT community. The Charter of Rights has been interpreted by the courts to recognize sexual orientation and gender identity. So I think we've come a long way, but it's not perfect, and there are still places and where homophobia and prejudice or discrimination against LGBT people is still a problem, and that's a matter of enforcement and of changing attitudes. I mean, I think if you look, for example, at the situation in Toronto with the Bruce McArthur murders, there's some people in the LGBT community in Toronto are upset by that because the police didn't take, or there's a perception that the police didn't take it seriously, that there was a serial killer targeting LGBT people. So, whether that's the case or not, I think remains to be seen. But there still is a perception that the legal framework and there are gaps in the enforcement of our legal system. Okay. So there's still progress to be made. Okay,
Eric, thank you so much, and again, I'd like to congratulate on your hard work. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for participating in Power Dilemmas. And that was Mr. Eric Lawrenson, who is the Vice President with Communications with LGB Tory. So discrimination comes in many forms, including racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, ageism, colonialism, and anti-Semitism. These social diseases create barriers, bullying, harassment, hate, and violence. No one should have to experience the negativity created by discrimination. The Day of Pink is more than just a symbol of a shared belief in celebrating diversity. It's also a commitment to being open-minded, accepting differences, and learning to respect each other. Hope you're all wearing your pink today. With this, we're going to take a short break and we'll come back. Stay tuned.
Today we are celebrating the International Day of Pink, a day to stand up against homophobia, biphobia, and transphobia. I think it teaches them that everyone is still a person worthy of respect and worthy of acceptance, and that everyone needs that feeling of acceptance, especially in high school.
It's amazing. I'm so excited to be part of this day. It's all so great. It doesn't matter who you are, what gender you are, what sexuality you are, who you are. It just matters that we're coming together. We're unified as one community.
I like the pink.
It's huge to have a voice for the young kids in this space who might be LGBTQ and might be struggling with their sexual orientation or gender identity.
I think I should take my jacket off. I want you to see the full.
We've come to learn that when people are different in any way, whether it's the color of their skin or where they come from or the language they speak or their sexual orientation, that's a source of strength.
Please stand up and place your right hand on your heart. Kindness is a promise, and it's all that we allow.
Kindness is a promise, and it's all that we allow.
When we stand together, we can stop bullying now.
When we stand together, we can stop bullying now.
If you need to protect your family or business with life and health insurance, save for your retirement and children's education, or need mortgage advice, we can help. To set up your complimentary meeting, call Zahid Syed at 905-624-0008 or visit urujfinancial.com.
Pabst Promo has become the largest suppliers of promotional products in Canada. If you're looking to get your business to the next level, then look no further and call 416-710-6777 or visit pabstpromo.com. Products we provide with your logo, teardrop flags, tents and banners, t-shirts and golf shirts with logo, pens, air fresheners and keychains.
Welcome back in my show, Power Dilemma, with Sarah Bukhari at TAG TV. An attempt to delete documents related to the Ontario government's decision to cancel 2 gas plants struck at the heart of the democratic process, a judge said today, as he sentenced a former top political aide to 4 months in jail. The Toronto Sun reported Judge Timothy Lipson said the crime committed by David Livingston, Chief of Staff to former Liberal Premier Dalton McGuinty, was extremely serious. His conduct was an affront to and an attack upon democratic institutions and values, Lipson said. An attempt to tamper with the democratic process requires a strong denunciatory response. Lipson also sentenced Livingston, who is 65 years old, a first-time offender with an otherwise exemplary record of private and public service, to 12 months probation, including 100 hours of community service. Defense lawyer Brian Gover said outside court that his client would appeal both conviction and sentence. Gover, who said he expected Livingston to be granted bail pending an appeal without having to spend the night in jail, denounced the punishment meted out to his client. The sentencing in the politically sensitive case comes just 2 months ahead of a general election in which Ontario voters will cast judgment on McGuinty's successor, Premier Kathleen Wynne, who has not been directly implicated in the gas plant scandal, although she was a cabinet minister at the time. Livingston, a married father and grandfather, was found guilty in January on 2 counts: illegal use of a computer and attempted mischief to data. The later charge was stayed. The prosecution earlier withdrew a charge of breach of trust. Livingston's co-accused, former Deputy Chief of Staff Laura Miller, was acquitted on all counts. So to discuss this Liberal gas scandal, we have with us Dr. Michael Bonner, who is an author and is a political advisor. Hello, Dr. Bonner. How are you?
Hi, Sarah. Very well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
So, Dr. Bonner, why would a government official wipe off data?
Well, look, the facts are exactly as you reported. That there was a cynical move undertaken toward the end of the campaign in the 2011 election to cancel 2 gas plants, one in Oakville and one in Mississauga. And these were done in an effort to save seats. And the cost was grossly misrepresented. The Liberals insisted that it was going to be only $230 million, but it was later revealed that it was significantly higher, more than $1 billion, which is really a shocking amount of money. Now, I want to take issue with one thing that you mentioned, the idea that Kathleen Wynne is not implicated. Kathleen Wynne, of course, has not been charged with any sort of a crime, but she was a member of the McGuinty cabinet, and her signature is on some of the cabinet documents pertaining to the decision to cancel those gas plants. So there's really far more continuity, I think, than most people might realize. Wynne has also undertaken an enormous effort to distance herself from that scandal, at the same time without denouncing it or repudiating it in any way. I seem to recall that in the 2014 election debates, she apologized something like 40 times for the gas plant fiasco, and she promised that she was going to do things differently if she became premier. She said, "I will continue to work to earn your trust." Well, it looks like the only thing we can trust is the continuing legacy of Liberal political corruption. And although it's good to see that justice has been served, nothing is going to bring back the $1 billion that were wasted.
So you mentioned that Premier Kathleen Wynne also signed one of these government documents connected to this Liberal gas scandal.
Cabinet records.
Cabinet records. So is there a chance she could be convicted before the June 7th election?
No. I think that the trial has run its course, and we've seen the end of it. Although there is an appeal underway right now, and we're going to have to wait and see how that goes.
So it looks like she was complicit in this case?
Well, this was a political decision. The decision to halt construction of the gas plants was a political decision undertaken by the McGuinty government, and that means that cabinet decided. And it's important to remember that there is not only, sometimes people say it's not the crime, it's the cover-up. Well, here we have both a crime and a cover-up, and this is really unprecedented as far as I'm aware in the history of Ontario.
Okay, so let's take our viewers behind the scenes. What really happened? Like, how was the construction of the gas plant halted? Who got the kickbacks? Why did this happen?
Why was it canceled? Well, it was a decision taken in order to, let's say, pacify disgruntled constituents who objected to the presence of the gas plants in the first place. The McGuinty government was on shaky ground going into the 2011 election, and the decisions to cancel the two power plants were taken in the hope of winning votes. Now, of course, they won that election, but it was a minority government, and what ended up happening is that Dalton McGuinty prorogued Parliament and then promptly resigned in order to avoid the scandal. That was 7 years ago, and this has been sort of a smoldering scandal ever since then, and it's been sort of Watergate on steroids, sort of dribs and drabs for 7 years, and an OPP investigation. The details of that have been well reported in Ontario media, but right now, I don't think this sentence, I don't think it could have come at a worse time for the Liberals. Now, I think that there are two possibilities. The first possibility is that this is already old news. Everyone has already decided what they think, and this sentencing just simply confirms what people already thought.
So do you think? Go ahead. Sorry.
Or it reinforces or it would galvanize certain people who might have been on the fence. They're not really sure what to think, or that maybe they had a soft spot for the Liberal Party, or they personally liked Wynne or something, and now this really changes their minds. What I would say about that is that whatever you think about the people involved, whatever your partisan obedience is, that the sort of behavior that was at stake here, and the sort of behavior that has been punished with jail time, is something that simply cannot be rewarded. And going into an election, I think that a lot of voters are going to have that in mind.
Okay, so do you think that this is the last nail in the coffin of the Liberal government, this crime and cover-up story?
Well, look, anything can happen in politics, so I'm not going to say it's the last nail in the coffin. But what it does do is it reinforces the narrative that that something nefarious occurred. And it's important to think back. There was a time when reporters and the Liberal Party insisted that there was simply no story here, that it wasn't a big deal, it was going to go nowhere. Maybe there would be an investigation that would drag on indefinitely, but nothing would eventually come of it. Well, now something has, and there has been an exemplary sentence handed down, and I think that officials in whom the public have placed trust from now on will think twice before they put the interests, the political interests of their bosses ahead of the public good.
Mm-hmm. So, how are the Liberal voters going to react to this sentence today?
Well, it's very hard to say exactly. It's really anybody's guess what's going to happen in the campaign. The cliche is that campaigns matter. I think that the Liberals will be determined to portray this as some sort of distant, distant memory of a previous political regime.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that people are going to buy that or be particularly willing to make a difference between the Wynne era and the McGuinty era. It's the same political party, a lot of the same actors, and unfortunately we've seen a very, very long procession of scandals of this sort, and the common denominator is putting the party's political interests ahead of Ontarians. There have been 5 police investigations directed at this government. Think about the hydro, enormously inflated prices for electricity generated by wind and solar power. Public money being used for self-congratulatory and partisan adverts. Billions of dollars wasted in the orange boondoggle, e-health, smart meters, the Herb Gray Parkway, the slush fund for the Pan Am Games. You name it. It's been 15 years of scandal and mismanagement, and this is just yet another example of that.
So why, as you're saying, there's a long procession of this sort of activity in the Liberal government, why aren't the Liberal voter realizing this, that their own government is stabbing at their back?
Well, the only way we're going to know how people really react to this is the vote in the June 7th election. Now, opinion polls have consistently shown the unpopularity of the Liberal Party and the personal unpopularity of Wynne, who is the least popular premier in the country, and certainly one of the most loathed politicians in North America. That's been a consistent trend, and the trend has been downward for some time. So I think that people do notice that the government is not living up to a particularly high standard, and they will have a chance to express that on June 7th. Until that date, though, we're going to have to wait and see.
Okay, Dr. Bonner, it's always good to have you and have your analysis on current political issues. Thank you so much for coming into my show today. We'll talk later.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so the June election is just a few weeks away, and we are seeing a procession of these kind of issues from within the Liberal government. As I always say, viewers, your vote is your democratic right. It is your choice, and you want to use your democratic right very responsibly, choosing the leaders which are good for you, for your families, and for Ontario. Having said that, with the last thought, thank you so much, and we will see you next time. Take care.